Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. This is the Harvey Hour. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. It's good to have you here on a Friday. How are you doing today on this Friday?
I'm always happy on a Friday. Looking forward to the weekend here. Had some really interesting sports stuff since we last had our show on Tuesday. We're here to tell you all about it.
We got some things planned in the future right now. Tuesday, part one of our mock draft, first round mock drafts. We're doing picks 1 to 10. Make sure you stay tuned for that. We got some questionable picks coming up on Tuesday because there's some controversy about the top three, which we're going to talk about later on in the show. But let's get into immediately the number one topic since yesterday, last night's game between the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers. Take it away.
Yeah, LeBron James and Stephen Curry met for the 56th time last night, 27th time in the regular season. And it was what you'd expect from two future first ballot Hall of Famers. The Warriors were able to pull off an upset in Los Angeles with a 123-116 win. Curry dropped 37 points. LeBron had 33 of his own with 9 assists. Pretty good game, I thought. I mean, it was closer than you'd thought at the end, and I'm interested to hear your reaction to the game.
Oh, well, I'll say this. This was an all-time classic. This is what you expect from, like you mentioned in the intro, two first-ballot Hall of Famers, Stephen Curry and LeBron James, who in the 2000s, LeBron in the 2010s, and Stephen Curry taking over probably in the last decade of the NBA, shifting how we see basketball, like I've always said on the show, reinventing the three-pointer, so now it's a focal point for every single NBA team. And if you don't embrace the three, like the Spurs have with Greg Popovich, if you don't embrace it, you're not going to get very far, and the Spurs haven't, even with Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul. And over the past several years, the Spurs have never been really in contention for NBA Finals because they've been one of the worst three-point shooting teams, one of the lowest in three-point attempts in the NBA. But last night was another beauty between LeBron James and Stephen Curry, who LeBron actually has him in the regular season. 13-14 Stephen Curry's record is against LeBron, but Curry has the advantage in the postseason. But this was another phenomenal game. Stephen Curry, after coming off of a 52-point game against Memphis, Jimmy Butler 27 in that game. Curry kept it up with 37 points in this game. But Brandin Podziemski coming up massive in this one with 28 points of his own, and really an all-time performance from him as well. He had a career, Austin Reeves on the Lakers had a career year as well. 9 three-pointers with 31 points. LeBron contributed 33 points. But I think the story of this is Luka Doncic. This was the massive move that the Lakers decided to make at the trade deadline and really shocked the NBA world. Where was he in this game? He wasn't there defensively whatsoever. We saw glimpses of the traffic cone that the Mavericks saw in the postseason last year where everybody would blow by him. Stephen Curry's blowing by him. Podziemski's blowing by him. Draymond Green blowing by him. Everybody's blowing by Luka Doncic. He shot 6 of 17, 0 for 6 from 3. Now, do I expect this to continue as the season progresses? No, I don't, and that's why I'm not entirely, shaking in my boots worried about the Lakers moving forward. Am I worried about their defense, as everybody expected from the Luka trade? Absolutely, and they've been one of the worst defensive teams in the last 15 games or so. So I'm a little bit worried about their defense, but I'm not worried about their offense. This was the only Warriors win against the Los Angeles Lakers all season. The Lakers haven't beat 3-1 in the season series, so I'm not worried about the Lakers' offense moving forward. I'm worried about their defense. LeBron James, another phenomenal game, 33 points in this one, contributed with also 5 rebounds as well, 9 assists, nearly double-double in this one. I was impressed all around, though. I think the defense of the Golden State Warriors showed up big in this one. Jimmy Butler, 3 steals. He didn't contribute massively offensively, but he did a great job defensively. And I think right now the Warriors exposed the potential weakness defensively for the Los Angeles Lakers because they decided to attack Austin Reeves, who shot the lights out in the first quarter, hitting 3 3-pointers in the first quarter. But they exposed them defensively because their two guards, Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, the Warriors shot 30 shots against them, and they allowed 19 of those to go through. They made 10 threes against this duo of guards. So I'm a little bit worried about that defensively. If you can't guard the perimeter against the best three-point shooting team in NBA history, that's what I'm calling it. The Golden State Warriors with Stephen Curry, that's just what they've been. And going up against the greatest shooter of all time in Stephen Curry, I'm a little bit worried. When it comes to the Warriors side of it, though, this is why I said a couple weeks ago that I believe Draymond Green when he says that this team can go out and win an NBA championship this season, because since they got Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline, they've gone 20-5. And if Stephen Curry and Jimmy Butler both are on the court at the same time, they're 20-2. And how about this? Because we've seen this entire season, Stephen Curry alone trying to carry these Warriors, and he has a losing record this season. And since Jimmy Butler's gone there, 20-2 record, but his numbers-wise, and I've showed this, we could update the graphic a little bit, numbers-wise, he's a much improved player, going from 22 points a game to 28 with Jimmy Butler. 4.5 rebounds, a little bit dip in the rebounds per game, but you don't expect a point guard to go out there and grab a bunch of rebounds. Assists, again, you have another playmaker, but the assists go down slightly. Again, not worried. But field goal percentage up, three-point percentage up, offensive rating up, defensive rating is technically up in the case of that's a better defensive rating the lower your defensive rating is. So, and by the way, that net rating of 17 would be the second best in the NBA right behind SGA. So Stephen Curry's improved in all facets of the game, shooting-wise, three-point-wise, defensively, offensively, everything. And the big thing that the Warriors didn't have early in the season was free throw attempts. They went from 27th to now with Jimmy Butler out there, they've moved to 4th in the NBA. So that's how you get easy points. If you can make free throws late in the game, that's when it matters. And the Warriors definitely doing that, averaging 24.9 free throws per game. So all around, I'm very impressed with the Golden State Warriors. And that's why I'm going to continue saying that I have no doubt in my mind that this team can go out with Jimmy Butler. We haven't even seen Jimmy Butler playoff mode. We haven't even seen that yet. So who knows what next level the Warriors could take with Jimmy Butler activating his playoff switch. But as it currently stands, this is a phenomenal game on all facets for the Warriors. Yeah. And the Lakers, defensively, I'm very nervous about that. Their goal, as it has been since the Luka trade, is can we outshoot you? And with your best shooter, Luka Doncic, going 0 for 6 from 3, the answer in this game was a big fat no.
Yeah, well, I would say I agree with you. This is an exciting game, particularly the last 2 minutes of the game where Stephen Curry and Reeves were trading the three-pointer, and the Lakers got within 6. And then what was Luka Doncic thinking about? He comes down the court and drives. I mean, there's less than a minute left, and they're down by 6. You need a three-pointer, right? He should have passed it to Reeves. He wasn't hitting anything. Instead, he drives down low and gets the ball stolen. I mean, that was, to me, that was the end right there. Although they did come back, and Reeves hit another 3. LeBron stole the ball, kicked it out for a 3. I can't remember who tried the shot and missed it. That would have got it down to 3 points too. And so it was very exciting at the end, the trading of the three-pointers. I just don't know what Doncic was thinking about. I'd say, the Warriors, it's their 4th win in a row. They're currently the 5th seed, 45-31. You say 20-2. I thought it was 19-2 since acquiring Jimmy Butler.
Well, this game is included.
Oh, okay. And then the Nuggets, they're 3rd at 47-30. Houston 2nd at 50-27, and the Lakers 4th at 46-30. The Warriors' final stretch includes games against top contenders, including the Nuggets, Rockets, Lakers, which could significantly impact their seeding. This win last night was really big for them because if they stay in the 5th seed right now, if they'd lost, they would have dropped all the way to the 9th seed, be behind the Clippers, who are at 44-32. The Lakers dropped from the 3rd to the 4th seed with the loss, and their remaining games are with Pelicans, 2 times against the Thunder. That doesn't look so good for them. The Mavericks, the Rockets, and the Trailblazers. I mentioned the Warriors. They've got the Nuggets, Rockets, Suns, Spurs, Trailblazers, and Clippers. So they got a little bit easier than the Lakers do. The playoffs began today. It would be Lakers against the Warriors. That would be a pretty interesting series. The seedings right now, the Thunder are ahead. They're way ahead here, 64-12. They're having a fantastic season. This may be their season to win it all. The Rockets at 50-27. The Nuggets, I mentioned, 47-30. The Lakers 46-30. The Warriors 45-31, making a dramatic run here. Look how far they were behind. I mean, to go 20-2 and still be 45-31, they were off to a horrible start this year. The Grizzlies at 45-32, that closes out the teams that would get a playoff spot without the play-in. In the play-in, the Timberwolves at 45-32, the Clippers at 44-32. The Mavericks at 38-39, and the Kings at 36-40. The Suns are at 35-41. What a disappointing season for them, right? And KD.
He'll be gone. Don't worry.
Yeah.
He'll be gone.
The Warriors have skyrocketed in the standings since acquiring Butler. It really made the difference. The switch got turned on when he arrived. When Curry, Green, and Butler play together, they are 19-2, I guess 20-2 with last night's game, including Podziemski. They are 12-0 when he's on the court, all of them together. The Warriors believe they can beat anybody. Last night's win shows that this was a huge game for them.
Well, here's what's interesting. You bring up, Oklahoma City, because they're 14 games up in the West, they can just go out and beat everybody. They haven't really beaten this team. And I'm calling, by the way, in the season series, they're 2-1. The Warriors are against OKC. That one loss, Curry didn't play, and they started somebody named Lindy Waters III, who isn't even on the team anymore.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about if Curry's out there and playing, and SGA, by the way, in one of the Warriors' wins, SGA dropped 50 points in one of those. So if I'm on the Warriors, I'm saying, well, our best player wasn't out there. We didn't have Jimmy Butler for any of those games, and we won 2 out of 3. But if we include Curry, well, guess what? We lost to them. It wasn't even like that much of a blowout in that game. The one without Curry, they only lost by 4.
Yeah.
So the fact that that's the game, though, these are the games that you played against the number 1 seed up by 14 games in the Western Conference. If I'm the Warriors, I'm not fearing OKC whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I really have no worry at all.
We don't get to see them play OKC before the playoffs, so they have to face them in the playoffs, and probably may come down to that.
And in that,
I don't see the Lakers. I don't see the Lakers making it to the
depends
Western
on who they
Conference
run into.
Finals.
Depends on who. No, they're not making the Western Conference Finals. No. And by the way, in that OKC series, the Warriors averaged nearly 115 points and only gave up 110. So again, they've had control of this series, I think, completely. Because again, you started somebody named Lindy Waters III, and Curry did not play, and you lost by 4.
Yeah.
Just going to put that out there. And SJ dropped 50 in one of the
Warriors'
Warriors'
haven't played
wins.
them since they got Jimmy
Correct.
Butler.
The last time they played them was January 29th of this year. The trade was announced, I believe, the night of the 5th, February 5th. So if I'm taking a look at the Warriors, I'm not fearing OKC. I know they're up by 14 games. They seemingly can't be stopped. SJ's dropping 30 points every night. I don't care. Your defense has improved drastically with Jimmy Butler out there. Your assist ratio is up massively since Butler got there. Again, you have another guy to distribute the ball to who is a serious threat who other teams have to worry about. Because, again, I don't know if you're fearing the 3rd or 4th guy on the Warriors. But now you have to fear legitimately 3 guys now because Podziemski was the number 2. Now Podziemski's the 3rd. And he just dropped what? He had 28 points, 8 of 10 from 3.
Yeah, Kuminga didn't have a bad game last night either.
Kuminga alone had more bench points than the Lakers combined. Yeah. So he had phenomenal minutes.
18
he had 25
points,
minutes.
9 rebounds, 4 assists. That's pretty good.
That's phenomenal coming off the bench. Like I said, one guy had more bench points than the entire Lakers team combined, bench points wise. So
Moody had a pretty good game too.
Again,
13 points,
you need
2
those
rebounds,
minutes out. You
3
got to have,
assists.
in order to have success, and this is what the Warriors did in 2022, you got to have your tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 guys come in and put up decent minutes. We saw Andrew Wiggins. He's not about to drop 25 on you every game. He's not going to hit 6 threes in a game. But will he give you 14 and come up with some great defense to slow down Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? That's exactly what happened in 22. He came up with some big-time rebounds, second-chance points, moving the ball effectively, playing great defense, and that's what allowed Curry to ignite in games 4 to 6 and just absolutely take off with contributing massive, important minutes from Wiggins, who they let go this season.
One thing we didn't mention that I think had a pretty big factor on the game with the rebounds and assists, the Warriors out-rebounding the Lakers by 7, 46-39, and
out-assisting them by 7.
By 7. Yeah. 7 and 7. Those are big.
You also shot a much better three-point percentage. You shot 45.2% compared to 38. You shot better from the floor as well. I have a lot of faith in this Warriors team because if you could dominate the number 1 seed who has a massive gap between the number 1 and the number 2 seed, and you're like, hey, we beat them pretty handily, and the only loss was when we didn't have our best guy out there, and now we have 2 great players, one that we got in the trade deadline, and we've only lost 2 games with Curry and Butler out there. I have a lot of confidence going to that series. We got to remain humble. You can have a lot of confidence, but you have to keep a steady head. That's what the Celtics have an issue with consistently. They underplay everybody and make a gentleman's sweep or a sweep into a 6 or 7 game series.
Yeah.
And we saw that with the 76ers they had trouble with. The Miami Heat, they went in and nearly got swept by them. I mean, it was an embarrassment the last couple of seasons, and they finally got over the hump last year. But If I'm the Warriors, a lot of faith in being able to win a couple series and I think make a pretty damn good run. If we see Jimmy Butler truly get activated, because that would be something. Because we know what it did for the Miami Heat, upsetting the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games. You gentlemen swept them. So if you add that to Curry's very hot nights, because Curry, when he gets hot, you could argue he is the most feared NBA player, the most dangerous NBA player currently.
I agree.
52 points, put up, 12 threes, 11 threes against the Memphis Grizzlies?
I think you have Jimmy Butler he's a dangerous scorer. He can be, and he's also a great team player.
Yes.
And he's also
you got to keep him happy for that. Cause
when he's out on the floor, he's a very good team player, and he also is not afraid to draw the foul.
That's true.
He's a muscle down there. He can be a beast, and I think that's helped the Warriors a lot. Getting to the foul line more with him. Although last night they didn't. I think Jimmy Butler only went to the foul line once. Right at the end of the game. He hit both his free throws.
Jimmy Butler was 2 for 2 on free throws. Curry went 13 of 14. He was the big one on that. Again, you shot 83.9%, 26 of 31. You shot 30. You out free throw shot him by 8. Excuse me.
It's going to be fun now. We'll get into
there.
the NBA now with the playoffs coming up. That's when the real season begins there, I think. It's kind of an exhibition until you get up to the playoffs.
Well, you could blame the players for that with load management and all of that, and now they only care about the playoffs. So I tend to agree with you in that regard. And besides, NBA, you're in a weird dry spell period. So
okay, topic 2. Earlier this week, the 49ers owner Jed York spoke with the media and called Brock Purdy a top 10 quarterback, and also spoke Brock Purdy's inevitable contract extension. And here's his quote. When you make the decision that you want to pay a quarterback that has obviously been underpaid in his first 3 seasons in the NFL, and I think that's true, you have to make some sacrifices somewhere. It's a decision that we made collectively, and we're hoping that we make somebody the highest paid player in the history of our franchise. Talk about telegraphing that you're going to pay somebody a lot of money. He's got to make the agent for Brock Purdy jump up and down and dance. What's your is Brock Purdy worth it in your mind, Nate? What do you think? I would say you probably don't think so.
Well, it all depends on the number.
What the money is.
It all depends on the number, because we saw the 49ers get off of 17 guys this offseason to accommodate of the incoming contract of Brock Purdy. Now, we've seen this season with Brock Purdy a little bit shaky in talent and dealing with injuries. He becomes Jimmy Garoppolo. That's just what it is. You can look at the numbers with Garoppolo dealing with injuries and Brock Purdy this season. They're basically identical. This is not biased data. This is not hating. You take a look at Jimmy Garoppolo when the 49ers were banged up, also defensively, which is what the 49ers have really prided themselves on being, a heavy defensive team with efficient offense. Not dominating offense, but efficient offense. And basically, Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo were one of the same statistically, and actually Jimmy Garoppolo had a better record under that current scenario. But I find interesting is that now the 49ers are saying that Brock Purdy's a top 10 quarterback. And that got me thinking, well, he wasn't in 2024. And so I decided to compile a list of my top 10 quarterbacks. And I want to preface this before everybody goes down in the comments and has an issue. This is not number 1 is the best quarterback. This is just a list of 10 quarterbacks that I think are in the top 10. You could put them at whatever ranking you want. But these are the top 10 quarterbacks in my opinion. Again, not in this order necessarily. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, and Justin Herbert. And everybody, Justin Herbert? The guy who just threw 4 interceptions in a playoff game? Well, let's talk about that, shall we? Let's talk about that. Because if we take a look last year, Herbert had a better record, more passing yards, more touchdowns, fewer interceptions, and a higher passer rating with a worse wide receiver core, worse pass blocking offensive line, a worse running game, worse run blocking offensive line, and had a defensive coach with Brock Purdy having an offensive guru in Kyle Shanahan. And also, on top of this, at least made the playoffs. And I could also argue that Justin Herbert is in a bad situation because of his offensive coordinator being Greg Roman, who absolutely decapitates passing. He only focuses on the run. He has like a 30 win percentage when his running backs do not run for 100 or more yards. So Justin Herbert is actually up against it when it comes to his production in the NFL. But yeah, that is my opinion of, again, not a list of Patrick Mahomes is number 1 and Herbert's number 10, but just a collective group of who are the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL currently. I do not think, as it currently stands, Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback. Is he fringe? Sure. But so is CJ Stroud, Jordan Love. If Trevor Lawrence gets healthy again and he actually plays well, maybe, but as it currently stands, no, I don't think he's fringe. Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, those are fringe quarterbacks. But Sam, we're not.
For 1 year,
Sam,
2024. Look at his stats.
Yeah, with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Nailor, T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, the best pass rushing defense in the NFL for about 3/4 of the season. Sam Darnold is not a fringe top 10 quarterback. He had a top 10 season. But on the Seahawks with a Cooper Kupp that's broken down and JSN about to step into a wide receiver 1 role, and behind a bad offensive line and a defense that needs a lot of work?
Probably not.
I don't know. But it all depends on the number. If you can get him, and by the way, I saw something out here that the number will start with a 3, which means $300 million. Could that be a 6-year, $300 million deal? Could that be a 5-year, $300 million deal? Now, if it's a 6-year, that's $50 million per year. If it's a 5-year deal, that's $60, tying Dak Prescott. Supposedly, it's not supposed to be the highest AAV, average annual value, meaning that it would tie Dak Prescott. So it's more likely going to be that 6-year or less money on a 5-year potentially. So if you can get him for the cheap-ish, $50 million is fine with me. 60, 55, I don't know about that. Don't know about that. Because we've seen a lot of quarterbacks come into the Shanahan system and work decently. For instance, Jimmy Garoppolo. And on top of that, we're about to see a 49ers roster with, we don't know what Christian McCaffrey is going to look like coming back from his double, I was about to say appendicitis, having the Achilles issue. I'm forgetting the exact
inflammation.
Word. Yeah, whatever the case was. He played 4 games. It was ineffective the entire season. Brandon Ayuk's coming back from injury. There's been trade speculation, and he just signed a contract. So who knows? Could he get traded mid-season? I don't know. Potentially. An offensive line that's aging, and we don't know if Trent Williams is going to play the entire season because he's dealt with injuries occasionally. And we've seen Purdy's numbers plummet without Trent Williams out there, who is really the true MVP of that team. The offensive line needs work. The running back room, if CMC is injured, you got basically nobody. Wide receiver core, Ricky Pearsall's fine, but is he a guy that's going to change the game for you? Juwan Jennings had a couple very nice games last year. Debo's gone. Ayuk's your number 1. I'll give the 49ers credit. They draft very well. But Purdy is Jimmy Garoppolo just a little bit elevated. He's a better version of Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's not a difference maker on that team. And I've said it before. He's the 5th most important player on that team. He's not the difference maker. He's just a guy that does his job very well. That's not $60 million. That's just doing what the system gives you. And you lost a bunch of key playmakers on defense last year, which has been your claim to fame since 2019 when you made it to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. Mm-hmm. So, again, if the number's accurate and it's 300, I'm hoping it's the 6-year and save a little bit of money. Because paying him $60 million a year, you need to build around him. You have to. That's something with Brock. You have to build around him. Because is he Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts in mobility? No. Does he have the arm of a Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Mahomes? No. Is he an elevated quarterback in arm talent? Yes. Is he extremely smart? Yeah, accurate, precise with his throws, reading well? Yes. But he also said recently that 40% of the time, he can't even see because the offensive linemen are too tall. That's great for negotiation, by the way. I'm sure the 49ers are bringing that up. But yeah, no.
Well, maybe he'll wear some elevator shoes.
It all depends on the price for me.
Yeah.
So
okay, well, York, he also revealed at the 2025 annual NFL meeting that their offseason free agency approach was heavily influenced by the decision as an organization to pay Brock Purdy. You just mentioned they also released 17 of their players. So if Brock Purdy gets a big contract, he got to have as much around him as he's had in the past. Can he be a big enough difference maker to offset some of that? I question that. The 49ers dialed back their offseason spending and prep for the largest contract in franchise history, as York telegraphed to everybody. for Purdy, and re-signing Kittle and Warren too. Warner, they need to get those contracts done as well. York believes Purdy is a top 10 quarterback. You tried to debunk that with your analysis there. The deal shouldn't be that hard to do once they sit down. That's what the feeling is. York, Shanahan, and Lynch have been aligned in the offseason message and strategy throughout the process. The question, as we've both been and you've been debating here and analyzing, is he worth it? The agreements for top tier quarterbacks include the arguments for a top tier contract include, in 36 starts, his passer rating's 104.9. He has 64 TDs, a 67.5% completion percentage. That's pretty damn good. Starting quarterback for 4 NFL playoff victories. That looks good, too, including 3 games where the team rallied in the fourth quarter to win the game. Leading the team to the Super Bowl and is a strong indicator that he's a franchise quarterback. He's been impressive value. He's had an impressive value given that he was drafted last in 2022. Has been very productive despite being paid next to nothing. 49ers have a strong record since he took over as a starter. The arguments against is a limited sample size with only 36 games started. Some argue his success is heavily influenced by the 49ers' offensive scheme and coaching rather than solely his individual talent. I think that's a reasonable argument. 49ers may have a hard time negotiating a contract with Purdy, especially given the current market for quarterbacks where they're getting paid astronomical sums. He did regress a little in 2024 through some interceptions that were a surprise. He had some injuries that limited him a little bit. Big contracts have been given to other players who had poor performances in 2024. You look at Dak Prescott and Trevor Lawrence. Dak Prescott got hurt and didn't play. Both of them got hurt and missed chunks of the season, didn't finish the seasons. So we know the 49ers are going to offer him a contract, and we know it's going to be pretty big because they've held back in free agency and they've saved money for it. So what's the number going to be? So you threw out some numbers. Are they going to pay him in the $55 to $60 million range, or is it going to be in the $45 to $50 million range? He's been to 2 NFC championship games. Was hurt and won, but continued to play, which was, I thought, very impressive, even though they lost. He was he won and brought them back to regain the lead in the fourth quarter and overtime of the Super Bowl. I thought he played great in that Super Bowl. I feel like they got gypped in that game. The defense let him down, and they fired the defensive coordinator after that game. He's had more success in a short career than a number of other high-paid quarterbacks, and is a strong argument. That's a strong argument in his favor. He's been the NFC Championship game twice, as I mentioned, which is something Dak Prescott hasn't done. In fact, Prescott hasn't even been to one NFC Championship game. He hasn't even gotten close. He can't get beyond the divisional round, and he makes $60 million a year. Neither has Trevor Lawrence, and he makes $55 million a year. He's been to a Super Bowl, which neither Lawrence, Prescott, Jackson, or Allen can say. They all make big money. I say, I like your six-year, $50 million contract, but I'd be surprised if that gets done. I think it's more like 5 years at 55 will be the final number. Well, with a good chunk of it guaranteed. We didn't talk about the guarantee amount. I bet 75% of it or so is guaranteed.
Again, you're banking on, because everybody's saying that Brock Purdy is your guy. You have that much faith in Brock Purdy that once George Kittle retires, Brandon Ayuk, he's not as productive, that you could fill in all those gaps. CMC retires or gets hurt or whatever. You're banking on Brock Purdy being that difference maker. You're banking on Brock Purdy separating himself from the quarterbacks that we call true game managers and becoming a game changer, like Mahomes is, like Allen is, like Lamar is, like Jalen Hurts could be. I don't see Brock Purdy ever being in that company. You do think right now that there's a scenario where
Look at his stats, Nate. His stats are good. His stats are really good.
Again,
I mean, he was hurt in 2024.
I always get told
a lot of players
matter.
around him were hurt in 2024 as well.
Okay.
I mean, you look at what he did. He's done 104.9 passer rating, 64 TDs, and almost 68% completion percentage in 36 starts. That's not bad.
With what has been the deepest team in the NFL since 2019. We take a look at every single roster, and what we go to is who's the best team when it comes to true depth, and we've always talked about the 49ers every single time. Maybe we talked about the Bucs in the first year with Tom Brady. Maybe we talk about the Eagles nowadays. But when it comes down to it, one consistent team that's always been at least top 3 of the deepest teams and the best built rosters in the NFL has always been the 49ers. And obviously injuries change those things, but injuries are a part of football. When you become a true game manager, or a true game changer rather, and separate yourself from being just the game manager who falls strictly into the system, is when you take over and when you could capitalize on those types of moments. We've seen consistently Trent Williams goes down, Brock Purdy's efficiency plummets. We've seen Deebo Samuel go down, Brandon Ayuk go down, Purdy becomes Jimmy Garoppolo, CMC goes down, he becomes Jimmy Garoppolo. That's just what it is. And we never thought Jimmy Garoppolo was a top quarterback in the NFL. And in fact, in that exact same situation, like I mentioned earlier, Purdy becomes Garoppolo.
Okay, well, there was a time when Jimmy Garoppolo was the top-paid quarterback in the NFL.
But now it's different because now you're talking about $27.5 million compared to $60.
Yeah, but I mean, that was quite a few years ago now.
Correct.
And he was the top-paid quarterback in the NFL.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
But then, okay, and then we can talk about the injuries or whatever. Even with the injuries, Herbert still had a worse offensive line, a worse running game, a worse wide receiver core. And he's at a deficit because his head coach is a defensive head coach that believes in running game and defense. His offensive coordinator in Greg Roman, there's a reason why everybody critiqued Lamar Jackson's passing game being underdeveloped. Who is his offensive coordinator? Greg Roman. And now with Todd Monken, we're saying, oh, wow, Lamar can throw the football. Those last 2 years were like, Lamar's passing game has improved. I wonder why. His offensive coordinator at least lets him pass the ball. Now we can talk about the AFC Championship.
Justin Herbert's performance in the playoffs this past year was very disappointing.
I agree, and I said he's gone from a B+ to, in my opinion, a B- quarterback. But I think that's because
that puts him in the top 10.
Hey, if he's not in the top 10, he's still better than Brock Purdy. He's still better than Purdy.
I'm not so sure.
Last year with Greg Roman as his OC, he was a more effective quarterback, but more yards, more touchdowns, a better passer rating, fewer interceptions, with a worse team offensively. Because Purdy isn't throwing it to his own defense. Purdy's throwing it to other.
Doesn't want a playoff game yet.
But that's what he called chargering. That's why there's a term for it. It's called chargering. They seem to never have success in the playoffs.
Look what happened to him against the Jaguars a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they're up by 24-0, and then you collapse and lose that playoff game. Yeah. Absolutely, and that's what made Trevor Lawrence tied for the highest paid quarterback at the time in NFL history. Which again, you take a look at the Dak Prescott contract. Is he worth 60? No. Is Jordan Love at this current moment worth 55? No. Is Trevor Lawrence currently worth 55? Hell no. All these guys have to live into the contracts, but you're hoping that in the future they live up to their price tag. And you're also hoping that the cap explodes again, so that seems like a cheap deal.
Yeah.
When it comes to Brock Purdy, he's played good enough so we could talk about him, but we have to remember, 2 years ago, we were having a debate on who's the MVP, Brock Purdy, Lamar Jackson, or maybe a hint of Dak Prescott. Now this year, we're like, Brock Purdy, was he 6-9 this year, I'm pretty sure? 6-8. Ugh. And then we remember the Chiefs game. In his own territory, he threw 3 interceptions. Against the Kansas, he had every opportunity to win. Drove the ball down the field against the Chiefs. Finally giving them a second loss in the regular season. And it was pick. Mahomes is throwing pick after pick after pick. It's just that Brock Purdy in crucial situations.
He didn't play well in that game.
He played horrible in that game. And in late game situations, again, Brock Purdy needs to prove that he's clutch. And now we're seeing a season.
He did that in the Super Bowl.
Was he that clutch, though?
He did that. He was clutch in the Super Bowl, Nate. He brought him back. They were behind in the fourth quarter. He took them down and got them the lead. And then what
happened in the start of overtime?
And then the Chiefs came back and kicked the field goal and tied it.
What happened in the start of overtime?
When they
got the ball.
They wound up getting the lead. They had the lead in the fourth quarter in the overtime, and they lost it because
they got
the Chiefs,
a field goal.
They got a field goal, but they got the lead.
And
they did get the lead.
We've had this conversation, and I wish
thought
I had
Brock Purdy deserved to win that game. The defense let him down. Defense let him down. He's deserved to win that game. He's a franchise quarterback as a result of that game.
I'm not saying he's not, but you can't pay him like all of a sudden he's going to be a difference maker. Like I said, he's the 5th most important person on the 49ers.
I don't agree with that. He's more important now than CMC. CMC is over the hill. CMC he's got so many injuries. He could only play 4 games last year. He's got the problems with his legs. He's going to be a shadow, I think, of what he's been. And I feel bad about that because I like him a lot, and he's had some great years, but he gets hurt, and he's got a lot of mileage on him, and it shows. So I think Brock Purdy is a more important player than he is for the 49ers now. And Brandon Ayuk, he's coming back off a bad knee injury. They've even talked about wanting to trade him. So I don't know. George Kittle is good, and he'll be serviceable, and they need to get him a contract. You look at Trent Williams; he's old now. Whether will he still have the gas in the tank
MVP
this year?
of the 49ers.
Yeah. So I think it's mostly on Brock Purdy. Yeah.
And
who's the running back going to be? CMC.
CMC's your guy right now.
Yeah. I question whether he'll be durable enough to last the whole season.
Well, that was a big thing, and even when they traded for him, that was the big question mark. And he was healthy for 1 full season.
Yeah.
But now here's my question to you. So I said that there's 5, and here are my 5. Potentially 6. Shanahan, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, CMC, Ayuk, or Kittle, depending on how much you value. Last year, Kittle was the highest passer rating when targeted to, so that's always a good sign, and he's a phenomenal blocker as well. And then Purdy. So
Shanahan doesn't play, Nate. He's the coach. But
is he on the 49ers?
He is, but he's the coach. I'd take him out of the mix.
He's a system that made Jimmy Garoppolo a Super Bowl
but he's a decision maker, a leader of the team from the sidelines.
That's pretty important.
He's not out there on the field,
right? But you think Purdy would have this level of success with an Urban Meyer,
whoever else you have on that list? You've got to put Shanahan ahead of them because
I have him number 1.
Yeah, he's number 1. Yeah, for any of those guys.
Correct. That's why he's number 1 on my list.
Yeah.
Because he is the head coach. He's the one that operates it. He draws to the plays. He calls the plays. He is the 49ers system. That's why you take a look at some of these Shanahan trees, and you look at, oh, my God, they're great coaches. Oh, well, they're learning from Shanahan. That's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. So, yes,
I got a lot of respect for Brock Purdy, particularly when he got hurt in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, which I think they would have won that game if he hadn't gotten hurt. He tore a ligament in his elbow, couldn't even throw the ball, and still went out on the field and took snaps. And even tried to throw it once or twice there and couldn't. I give them a lot of credit for that. The 49ers owe him a decent contract.
It's all about that number because you still got to keep building.
I guarantee it's well over 50.
You still got to keep
well
building.
Well over $50 million a year. It's going to be well over $50 million a year. It might get restructured several times down the road, but that happens. But it's going to be well over 50, and I think it's deserved.
Very well. All right, take a quick break. But coming up, Shedeur Sanders had his pro day, but Adam Schefter saying that it's increasingly likely that he falls out of the top 3. Does today change the way we think about Shedeur Sanders, as well as Falcons owner Arthur Blank made a comment about the Kirk Cousins trade situation. We're going to talk about that right after this break.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the content.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show, which is...
We're going to be talking about the Shedeur Sanders situation here on the NFL Countdown. Adam Schefter reported it's increasingly unlikely that Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders lands in the top 3 of the NFL draft. Today, Sanders had his pro day, completed 58 of 63 passes with 3 drops, and also went perfect in the 2-minute drill. So are the Browns or the Giants making a mistake if they pass on Shedeur?
It all depends. I think when it comes to the Browns, no, because you're still stuck with Deshaun Watson, and my guess is all the reports are saying that Abdul Carter is their selection, and they may tank for Arch Manning next year. So that looks like it's on the board right now. When it comes to the Giants, maybe. That is my answer when talking about New York. That's a maybe. Because you have Russell Wilson, you have Jameis Winston. You have one legitimate threat at the wide receiver position and no running game. Again, Darius Slayton, not good enough to be a real threat. Wan'Dale Robinson, he was the worst third down wide receiver while getting the most amount of third down targets for the New York Giants last year. Not good enough. Tyrone Tracy, decent running back, not good enough. Your offensive line, nowhere near good enough. So what I find actually funny, and we've talked about this now on the show a couple times, I do think Travis Hunter is your best shot, and then either trading back into the first round to get a quarterback or hoping you can get a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe in the second or third round. That's what my guess would be if I were the GM if I was Joe Shane and I didn't want my head cut off by John Mara for making bad decisions. But I think it would just be smart because now you have 2 legitimate threats offensively, and Travis Hunter could also play cornerback, which you suffered massively in last year, having one of the worst rated secondaries in the NFL last year. And I think it's kind of interesting that we take a look at the Colorado Shedeur Sanders situation and the New York Giants situation. Because I do think if we're talking about best destination for Shedeur, there's 2 of them. One of which would be the New York Football Giants. The other of which would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's only if you plummet to the 21st pick in the draft. That's the only way. Now, the Saints could be in play. I don't think they'll go that route. You could take a look at some of these other teams and maybe potentially Colts. And my guess would be the Saints are your only threat. If the Steelers are looking at drafting Shedeur or Jackson Dart, the Saints would be your only threat. But when it comes to the Giants and Shedeur, let's compare those 2 situations. In Colorado, you had one legitimate threat in Travis Hunter. The Giants, you'll have one legitimate threat in Malik Neighbors. You had no running game with Colorado. You will have no running game with the New York Giants. The offensive line, non-existent for Colorado. For the Giants, the offensive line was actually top 12 in the NFL with Andrew Thomas out there. But when Andrew Thomas went down, they were dead last the rest of the season in pass blocking. So we can call that no offensive line. So he would actually be in relatively similar company if he does get drafted by the New York Giants. Also, the markets would be somewhat of the same because New York media market, sports market is massive. Colorado's market, because of Deion Sanders, was massive. They were probably the most talked about college football team that had no business being talked about based on just overall success and trying to make the college football playoff and whatnot that expanded to 12 teams. They really had no shot, but they were probably the most talked about team in college football last year amongst all the talking heads of sports media. So the markets, I think, would be somewhat similar. And I think Shedeur fit in beautifully in New York. I mean, him and Brian Dable already seem to have they have a decent relationship. You see him dapping up at the combine. He just had his pro day. So I think right now, if we're talking about, I think the Giants, out of the 2 teams, the Browns and the Giants would probably be making the biggest mistake. Although I still think Travis Hunter, based on the way your team is constructed and the moves you made this offseason, and the fact that Russell Wilson is already calling himself quarterback 1 on the team, don't love that. But I think the way your team is constructed, you need a serious threat offensively. Travis Hunter is your guy. But I could also say, if we're comparing the 2 teams, I could understand why the Giants would be making a massive mistake if they decide to pass on Shedeur. But the Browns, no. You still have Kenny Pickett, which is a terrible choice, but you can get Abdul Carter. You have Deshaun Watson coming back eventually, and the tank for Arch could very well be in play next year anyway. And even with, Shedeur Sanders, I think he would rot in Cleveland. That's the thing. I think he would absolutely plummet in any sort of potential that he has with Cleveland.
Really? Yeah.
When has Cleveland had a good quarterback? Baker Mayfield for 2 years?
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett, actually, not
They're
bad
probably
year filling
wishing
in
they'd
for
hung
Deshaun.
on to Baker Mayfield.
Oh,
that was a
absolutely.
big mistake.
Absolutely.
So,
When do
you know,
wanna
my
shift that?
view, Sanders is perhaps the hardest player to predict where he lands in the 2025 draft. He could go as high as, maybe he goes 1. Doubtful. It looks like Cam Ward's going to get that spot. He may fall all the way to 21st, as you say, with the Steelers taking him. He's been speculated to go as early as number 2 to the Browns or number 3 to the Giants. Most believe Cam Ward will be selected by Tennessee. I recommended in the last show that the Browns take Sanders, but they have a history of botching important quarterback decisions, most recently the Deshaun Watson deal. So I'm betting the draft that they draft Abdul Carter to pair him with Myles Garrett, which would make some sense if they had a reliable quarterback, which they don't, with only Kenny Pickett brought in from the Eagles so far. There are no veteran free agents that left now except Aaron Rodgers and maybe Kirk Cousins. We're going to talk about Kirk Cousins a little bit in our next topic. Rodgers likely going to the Steelers, I think, or maybe holding out a long shot hope for the Vikings. Cousins wants to be traded from the Falcons, but so far the team is retaining him, likely waiting until later so they can trade him with less cap hit damage. We'll talk about that when we get to the Cousins topic. This is a high-risk situation, which I think the Browns will leave themselves exposed at quarterback and take Carter. That's where I think they're going. That gives the Giants a shot at Sanders, which I think they will pass on as well because they picked up Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Shane and Daboll know their jobs are on the line, and they made a terrible mistake with Daniel Jones' contract, and they don't want to, A, risk their jobs on a rookie, B, be in position to have the bench have to bench Russell Wilson if they are 0-5 or 1-6 early in the season for either Winston or Sanders. I'm not sure how they would decide which one to put in. If they are 0-5 or 1-6 early in the season, they will both be fired probably at the end of the season. So their logic is we need to win, and our best chance is with a proven veteran quarterback. To improve their chances, they need to take pressure off of and give more opportunities to Malik Neighbors, and their only true who is really their only true offensive star. The way they accomplish this is to draft Travis Hunter, who is definitely a top 3 draft talent, but is not the right pick for the Giants for the long-term success. Wilson's not a long-term answer. His abilities continue to erode, and he's getting old. Winston continues to throw too many interceptions, which continued with the Browns last year. Long-term success requires a franchise quarterback, which Sanders may be, but the Giants aren't going to take him. I think both the Browns and the Giants are making a big mistake by not taking Sanders. Maybe his pro day performance today will change their minds, but based on both teams' history with quarterback decisions, I doubt it.
So if you had to bank on, because we're about to do our mock draft, so maybe this is a spoiler for the top 3.
Yeah.
Browns, Giants, or drop, what would happen with Shedeur? If you were the GM, Browns, Giants, or drop, what do you think is going to happen? If you were a third-party GM, just spectating this draft, what would you guess happens to Shedeur in
I think he's taken
draft?
by the Raiders at number 6.
After they just extended Geno on a 2-year deal? You think they'd really just say, you know what, let's draft Shedeur?
If he's there, I mean, I think he's the best available player at that point because Hunter is gone, Carter is gone, and Ward is gone, right?
It'll be interesting to see what your mock draft looks like on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that I think that's where he's headed. I really do.
So if it's not the Giants or the Browns, you think the Raiders are going to draft Shedeur?
I do.
Ooh.
I don't think he drops to 21. I don't see that. If he got by the Raiders, then I think the Saints would take him. So I don't think he gets to 21. I don't see that. He's too good a talent to drop that far.
Well, apparently people don't believe that. People don't have full belief
Look at
in
the
that.
pro day. The only passes he missed basically are the ones that people dropped.
This is a beautiful deep ball. This was absolutely a gorgeous deep ball. Look at that. Air on the ball,
right
perfect
there.
throw. Breadbasket throw, as they call it.
Yeah, well. Somebody, these teams that have the opportunity to take him and they don't, and he turns out to be a franchise quarterback, they look pretty bad. Yeah.
Let's get into our final topic.
Look at all the teams. Look at all the quarterbacks taken before Tom Brady was taken, right?
Well, nobody knew that.
You already hear about it. You continue
Brady.
to hear about it. Year after year after year, it comes up.
Well,
all those quarterbacks that were taken ahead of him. He could have been the 49ers.
He's a one-in-a-lifetime
The 49ers could have drafted Tom Brady, and they didn't.
Well, we're
They
talking about a
drafted a guy who never even played an NFL game. He never played an NFL game.
I mean, you're talking about literally a once-in-a-generation guy. You talk about generational player. That's who Tom Brady is, not Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams. Yeah. Get out of here. Let's get into our last topic of today's show.
Okay, topic 4. Falcons owner Arthur Blank told the Athletic's Josh Kendall, quote, "At the end of the day, what happens, happens. Maybe something pre-draft, draft, post-draft, I don't know. But Cousins understands what our needs are and what we have to do as a franchise." And that to me, that quote, we're going to talk about this. I don't understand what he's talking about there, really. What is the ideal destination for Kirk Cousins if the Falcons trade him, Nate?
This is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. A guy who doesn't want to be there, but also doesn't have the rebellious attitude to force his way out, so he's kind of stuck. Because he clearly wants to be out of there. He said he wants to be out of there. He told Arthur Blank he wants to find greener pastures and not be with Atlanta anymore because he wants to play. You know what? I could completely understand that. But you could also hold Kirk Cousins hostage because the last time we saw him, he went 1 for 4 with 1 touchdown and 9 picks. Not exactly, a good look for Kirk, who wants to be out of there, because he got benched for Michael Penix, the shock of last year's draft. So if we talk about ideal destinations, there's only one as it currently stands. Now, we could see an emergency quarterback situation, which the Steelers could potentially have if Raj decides to wait out the Vikings, or if he goes to the Vikings, or retires. It looks like it's going to be the Steelers, but supposedly, reportedly, Kirk Cousins will be their emergency quarterback option if Rodgers goes elsewhere or retires. But the only one that is still available is the Cleveland Browns, but it doesn't make any sense for Cleveland to trade for Kirk Cousins because they're already dealing with cap hell as it currently stands. They still have to fill their roster a lot still. They don't have a legitimate running back still. They have Jerome Ford as their starter. Their offensive line needs work. You lost your left tackle. I mean, there's a lot that the Browns still need to build on, and on top of that, you'll be dealing with the rest of Kirk Cousins' contract that I'm sure you can restructure. But as it currently stands, if the Falcons were to trade Kirk Cousins, it definitely would not be before June 1st. That's the thing. If we're going to see a Kirk Cousins trade, it'll be a post-June 1st trade because it goes from $37.5 million in dead cap money with only $2.5 million in cap savings to a post-June 1st trade, which would save the Falcons $27.5 million and only have a dead cap hit of $12.5. So no matter what happens, Kirk Cousins will not be traded if he is going to be traded for the next few months. So we'll probably hear a bunch of rumors moving forward. But yeah, Arthur Blank's quote. Let's get into this, why don't we? Whatever happens, something pre-draft, post-draft, I don't know.
Interpret it for me. I don't understand what he's talking about.
Well, I'll tell you right now,
anything.
It ain't pre-draft. You're not going to trade him pre-draft unless the Falcons decide to shock us again and do something stupid like take on massive dead cap when you could cut it by about 2/3 and leave the Browns or whoever you trade them to, leave that to their own devices, and you save $27.5 million. Post-draft, again, draft, no, because they still deal with the dead cap hit. Post-draft, most likely if you were to trade them. The Cousins understand what our needs are and what we have to do as a franchise. Well, they've been very vocal about that. They want Kirk Cousins to be their very expensive backup to Michael Penix. That's what they voiced. So if that's what Kirk Cousins has to understand what the Falcons need, well, then why the hell would he sit back and say, okay, I'll be an expensive backup? Now, if he just was in it for the money, he would love it. 14 games, $100 million, I think everybody would understand that. You don't play for the next season at least, but you still get to make a bunch of money, and you get $10 million guaranteed next year for that roster bonus. I would enjoy it. but he wants to play. He wants to prove himself because we have to realize that he was dealing with an Achilles injury. And then the last 5 games don't shine so bright because, again, 1-4 record, one touchdown, 9 picks, not a great showing. And there was a game in there, the Chargers game. He threw 4 interceptions, but the only reason why the Chargers won, it was a 17-13 game, was because you threw, I think, 1 or 2 pick sixes in that game. So if you didn't throw them, there was an opportunity for you to beat the Los Angeles Chargers, but you threw the game away literally. So I think that's what they mean.
Yeah.
They want him to be the backup,
Mm-hmm.
and he just has to accept that.
You know what? I think that I understand why they want that, because Michael Penix may not be anything special. We've only seen a very small sample of him, right? I mean, he played okay, but he didn't win the games they needed him to win to get to the playoffs. So, maybe what kind of sophomore year is he going to have? He started, 4 games? 4 games last
3
year?
games.
3 games. And he did okay. But they didn't win the games, so I think that there's some worry there, and the Falcons that maybe he's not the real deal, and they'd have to go back to Cousins before the end of the season. Bottom line, I don't think the Falcons are going anywhere. I really don't. I've never had much confidence in them. I think their leadership is a problem. I think their front office decision making is bad. And I just think they're never really going to go anywhere with whoever they've got there. So I think if I were Cousins, I'm with him. I want out. It's unclear what's happening with him. The trade, which was not made any clearer with Arthur Blank's recent comments. I drew a blank listening to Arthur's comments there.
That's a good one.
A trade does not appear imminent, but the Falcons have been said to be exploring trade offers, but there's nothing left now except with the Browns, really. If it benefits both sides, and Cousins also reportedly open to waiving his no-trade clause for a chance to play elsewhere. First-round draft pick Penix will be the starter in 2025, leading a situation where Cousins will be the backup, which is not ideal for either party, I think, particularly given Cousins' 4-year, $180 million contract with only 1 year expired on it. Trading him is a complicated, given the large amount of guaranteed money, $100 million. The Falcons would expect to have about $75 million of that has gone by now because he got a $50 million signing bonus and he made $25 million last year. He's slated to make $27.5 million this year. The Falcons would expect another team to absorb a significant portion of his contract for a trade to occur, and the Browns aren't in a position to do that, right? They've got all of Deshaun Watson money that they messed up, guaranteeing him $230 million. Falcons can't release Cousins without a significant cap hit. The Steelers would be the best destination, but they don't seem interested, preferring Rodgers. Every other team seems to have made their quarterback decision except the Browns. Cousins' contract makes him virtually untradeable with the $100 million guarantee, especially for the Cleveland, who has already had the Deshaun Watson's $230 million fully guaranteed mega deal that has 2 years left to go. So the only way for Cleveland to obtain him is for Atlanta to release him, which they say they don't want to do. The Browns can't afford to eat a large chunk of Cousins' $40 million cap hit. The Falcons got 14 games from Cousins for $100 million and appear to be fine holding him hostage. It's a Russell Wilson situation if you look at it when he was with the Broncos. The Falcons could release him and the Browns could sign him to the $1.2 million contract and go from there. And that's what they'd love to do. And that would make the most sense for the Browns. That's the Browns' hope. If he's released, the dead money hit is $65 million or $40 million if he's designated as a post-June 1st release. His salary for 2025, as I mentioned, is $27.5 million. He has a $10 million roster bonus for 26 and 27, which become guaranteed in the prior year. If they could trade him after June 1st, they offload his $27.5 million salary and lower his cap hit to only $12.5 million. The $100 million goes by with a signing bonus of $50 that he got last year. 2024 salary was $25 million. The 2025 salary is $27.5 million, so they get $2.5 million worth of cap savings. They could trade him. I think there's a possibility of a trade, and I think it's to the Browns. I think it's after June 1st for maybe somewhere between a 5th and a 7th round pick, and the Falcons have to eat maybe half the salary. I think that's probably what's going to happen because the Browns have got to have a quarterback. Are they going to go with Kenny Pickett for the full year?
Or draft Shedeur. Or draft Shedeur.
Oh, yeah, well, maybe. But I don't think that's likely. I think they've got their eye on Carter. And that would he and Myles Garrett are going to be sacking quarterbacks right and left, and they're going to be losing every game. Huh?
Hey, the tank for Arch is going to be a real thing, though.
Yeah. I think the Giants would love to have Arch Manning.
Of course. That would be the classic. Go from Eli to Arch Manning. I think
they'd have a new coach and a new GM to go with it, too.
Everybody's new. That's kind of what happens in the NFL nowadays. Yeah. That does wrap up today's show. We thank you for the constant support, as always. Tuesday's a massive show. Part 1 of our round 1 of the mock draft, the 2025 mock drafts, picks 1 to 10 will be released. We'll go through every single pick of the 2025 NFL Draft, the first round of it, over the course of the next 3 weeks. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's me, that's Stephen Harvey. We have been your co-hosts of this show. Make sure you catch us Tuesday, like I mentioned, mock draft and a bunch of other news. I'm sure we'll talk more NBA, maybe some baseball, definitely some football. We'll see you Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online